Hello, I'm really excited to be sharing this interview with you. I'm talking to Micaiah Corley with Sidekick AT, and AT stands for Athletic Trainer. She is the go-to person for anyone who is looking to prevent injury, who wants to recover from injury. And I'm speaking specifically, my audience is mothers. I'm a mom and I have kids. And I can even relate to this. And I wish I had known Micaiah when my son got injured in high school. He got something called Osgood-Schlatter, which maybe she can refer to that if, in a moment. But I really was just excited to bring her to you because Micaiah and her partner, Christina, they are a multi-talented certified athletic. Well, actually, Micaiah is a multi-talented certified athletic trainer. I'm reading here, stretching and flexibility coach. She focuses on functional movement, and she's a certified specialist in that. She's a youth exercise specialist, and she's a successful business founder, owner, and mother. Hence the interview with Micaiah. Micaiah, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Lori. It's a pleasure to be here and chat with you, as always.
I'm super excited, especially that we're sharing your knowledge with people who don't even realize they need what you've got. This is a big deal, especially in like high school sports and those sorts of things, moving into college and beyond. Trainers like you come into the fold, but tell me a little bit about how you got started.
Yeah, so really, that's exactly how I got started. So I was a college athletic trainer for 17 years, working in Division I athletics. And just over time, I really started to see these young 17, 18-year-old athletes entering into college with pre-existing injuries that were still nagging them and causing them a lot of problems, or injuries that were never recognized or diagnosed, or just having already suffered really significant injuries for such a young age. And injuries happen, and not all injuries are preventable, but the frequency at which I was seeing these was increasing year after year. And so in my mind, I just kept being like, what can we do to get to these athletes sooner? Because the reality is at college, you have an athletic trainer there. These athletes can come in the training room pretty much 7 days a week and access us. But in high schools, like I think it's about 36 or 37% of high schools are employ a full-time athletic trainer, one full-time athletic trainer. So it's not accessible. And so it was just, how can we fill this gap? How can we get this information? And so that's where the idea started kind of brainstorming, and this whole Sidekick AT business idea started to come alive. So to get this information to parents and athletes sooner.
I love that. I love that. And I know that right now, you definitely have an online platform. You work in person, but you can also do things online, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But tell me, like, one of the things that parents, so give me an example of where a parent could have prevented something. Like, what do you see when they get into college where things weren't prevented at the younger age?
I think a lot of it comes around building healthy habits, just like we try to do with everything as parents, right? Whether it's trying to build healthy habits around just general hydration, what our kids are putting in their body, nutrition, hydration, their social interactions, their reading habits, their homework habits. We're trying to build their healthy habits, right? And so a lot of times it's just learning, what do those healthy habits look like around athletics? So that could be, making sure that our athletes are getting enough water, not just 5 minutes before they play, but hours before they play, the night before they're working out, right? Because most people need to drink half their body weight in water just to be a couch potato. And that increases as you are more active, right? Because you're burning out and sweating out more water. So healthy habits around that, healthy habits around how can we help them, eat well? And that can be hard because, a lot of people are picky eaters, but younger athletes and younger kids are picky eaters. But what can we supplement things from a nutritional standpoint? What's a quick stretching routine that they can do before practice or when they get home? What's the sleep look like? So just building those healthy habits. And the reason that that's injury preventative is because when our body is healthy and can survive and maintain and thrive through the demands we're putting on them physically, they're decreasing their chances of getting injured, right? because they have the ability to bounce back. They're building flexibility and coordination and foundational strength, which we'll talk about later, so that they can withstand the demands that they're putting on themselves as far as athletics and activity. So it's just building the habits younger. So it's not necessarily a specific example, but how that correlates to a specific example is ankles are commonly injured. We've almost all had an ankle sprain. And if you do some foundational stretching to improve range of motion and a few basic exercises to improve your strength, you can reduce your chances of getting the, oh, it's just a sprained ankle injury that we all just kind of ignore in a lot of instances and move on. And that causes other issues down the road.
And that's how I found you, was you were doing an interview on that exact subject, and that's how we met. And so we're going to talk more about that at the end, because for those of you watching, she has a great free opt-in. Get this, explain it really quickly, and then we'll go back to it again.
It's the 3 ankle exercises that every athlete should be doing every day to reduce their chances of injury and improve their athleticism.
Wonderful. So that's going to be the offer that Micaiah is giving all of you that are watching. And this also applies not only to your kids, as athletes, but also to you as a parent, because most of us are, I remember running around when the kids were young and chasing after them. That was an athletic event.
Yeah, I always say that we are all athletes in the game of life, right? The sport of life. And so while obviously having worked in college athletics, and then trickling that down with the focus being on quote unquote youth athletes, this really is for everybody, whether you're an athlete 8 to 18, a professional athlete, a weekend warrior, an active mom or dad, or an active individual. Like, we can all benefit from this when we're taking the time to focus on us and our health. Because it all, it's across all boards, meaning when I was an athletic trainer now, but especially when I was in the college setting, seeing multiple athletes every day, you're nurturing them physically, but when you're nurturing them physically, you're nurturing them emotionally, nutritionally. You're taking care of the whole package. I mean, I would have these athletes coming in and we would be talking about, their injury, but then we're talking about, well, how's that affecting you in class, on the field, in your social life? So it's just having a conversation and making sure that you're taking care of the whole person. And that's a unique aspect that athletic trainers bring, not to downplay any physical therapist, but because of the setting of athletic training, a lot of athletes will tell you that their athletic trainer was their nutritionist, their psychologist, and their physical therapist. So we bring this whole, I was always joked around that I was a team mom, right? Like, they called me whether they were sick, whether they were hungover because it was college kids, whether their body hurt, whatever it would be. I was the first phone call. So we were nurturing the whole person, with obviously physical performance being the key component that we were gauging everything by as far as the success level. Mm-hmm.
I love that. That was one of the things that I wanted to make sure that you spoke to, because in the interview that I saw you in, that really opened my heart. I just felt such a appreciation for you, because they're in college and a lot of them are away from home. So they do look for that kind of nurturing and support. So you also mentioned how you're frustrated a little bit with the term athletic trainer, because a lot of people think of it as like a personal trainer, and it's completely different. Will you touch on that briefly?
Yeah. A lot of people, I have to explain what an athletic trainer is. They know what a physical therapist is, but really an athletic trainer, I think the profession was named wrong. And I think we should have been named sports medicine specialist, because really an athletic trainer, especially at an elite college setting like I was at, I am the emergency personnel. So while I'm not necessarily trained in everything that an EMT is trained in, emergency response, AED, that emergency response information, I'm trained to be that first responder. We were trained to be evaluate illnesses. We're trained to communicate between the physicians and the athletes. We were not pharmacists, but we definitely needed to understand drug interactions and what drugs should not interact when it came from what prescriptions our athletes were on to over-the-counter drugs that they may be given because they sprained their ankle and they want to take some Tylenol for pain. We are that first line of defense for referring them to psychologists, speaking to their academic advisors, like, hey, they had a concussion, they're going to be missing classes. So an athletic trainer is really like the core nucleus of an athlete's well-being that is making sure that every single specialist is being communicated with and informed and supporting that athlete as the whole. So we are not just a personal trainer where you can go to 24-hour fitness and get a workout in. And we're not just a physical therapist that can say, I can rehab your sprained ankle, or I can rehab, your torn ACL post-surgically. We are supporting the whole being. And we have to adjust to what's thrown at us. In my time as a college AT, I worked with athletes from identifying just biomechanical structures that were wrong and saying, hey, let's fix this before it causes an injury, all the way through the typical injuries you'd think of, all the way through. I had 2 kids who actually had open heart surgeries and I had to rehab them back to full playing status. So we can really touch on it all as elite level athletic trainers.
It's a very complex. I almost just envisioned you putting together like a mind map of what you just described, because as you say, people don't quite understand the depth of what you do. And that's why I'm really happy we're talking to you today, because I don't think a lot of people, those that are in the sports industry will understand it, but we're really discussing this with just your everyday folks who, have very active kids. So tell me, when should a parent be concerned about an injury that happened? Because most of the time we think, oh, they're young, they'll bounce back. Where does a parent need to be paying attention to an injury or something that needs to be addressed?
Yeah, I think from the time that the injury happens, right, you want to make sure that you are treating that correctly. There's a lot of myths out there, right? Whether it's around a concussion and, oh, they can't sleep after a concussion. That's a myth. They can. Your brain is a muscle that's been injured and it needs to rest. The best way it can rest is to sleep. There's, even these, we've all, I keep going back to the ankle because people can relate to that. We've all tweaked our ankle, right? And then, but I kept playing. I ran it off. It was sore for 2 days, but then it was fine. But then a week later, their knee started bothering them. Well, that probably is not a coincidence. That's probably from your ankle. That's just fine. So really in the beginning, we want to make sure that, we're looking at it, we're evaluating it. It might not require extensive physical therapy, but are we putting a compression wrap on it? Are we making sure that they're hydrated? Or making sure that they're keeping the range of motion going and addressing it? So we want to care for it properly, but when it becomes a concern is when it's continuously, if it's just a light injury and it's causing pain 3, 4, 5, 6 days later. If you've noticed, like I was saying, kind of a secondary issue happening in another part of the body that's not where they injured themselves. And also just not blowing off our kids. I know I have small kids, they'll nag, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts. If they're continuously bringing it up, sit down and have a conversation with that. Listen to them, listen to what they're having to say. And, is it just because they don't want to go to practice, or is there really something going on here, right? But take it, because we all know our kids the best, right? So we have to listen to that. And maybe they just need a mental break sometimes too. So, that's just a side note. But and then definitely the other thing I'll say as a mom, trust your gut, right? For an example, I had an athlete who came into college, had a very significant knee injury, going into her senior year of high school. She was a McDonald's All-American in basketball, which basically means she's going to be recruited to a top 10 college of her choice, right? She's a phenomenal player. And she fell, knocked her knee, but had a big tournament coming up. So she rested for 2 weeks. Well, this was a lateral bone bruise where the bones knocked together and she had a deep bone bruise, just like you get from a punch on the arm, but in the bone. And it required probably 6 to 8 weeks of resting. But she went back, she kept playing. And her mom, years later, after coming to college, after just having to, long story short, have surgery for that knee, her sit out a year in rehab and do everything because of this injury from her the summer before her senior year of high school. And the mom was just like, I knew I should have said that she couldn't go to that. I knew I should have trusted my gut, but I didn't have anybody like you giving me information. So I trusted my coaches and I listened to my daughter who just wanted to play and said she could take it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
So
kind of wrapping back around to, we think our kids are just going to bounce back, that they're
Yeah.
young, they're just, but that is a myth. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're spot on. You didn't cut me off. That exactly. That is a myth. I mean, sometimes they will, right? The body is resilient and it will bounce back. But we just want to make sure that we're paying close attention to things and little things that seem off after an injury. The body's amazing. The body can compensate and pretend like something didn't happen. But let's pay attention to it. It might not be anything major, but might just be, we need to, strengthen that ankle a little bit. We need to throw in a pair of orthotics. We need to do some core strengthening. It could be something really mild and easy that we need to do just for a few weeks. But, the problem is, and this is where Sidekick AT comes in, is if people do have that thought, they don't know where to ask. They don't know what to ask to Google. WebMD is not telling them the information, right? They don't know where to go to ask the information. And as great as your pediatrician is at being a generalist, they're probably not sports specific. And even a lot of my orthopedic physicians that I work with, they're phenomenal physicians, but they're not necessarily picking up on these minute biomechanical differences in somebody. So having an athletic trainer to bounce something off of and be like, this seems like nothing, but is it? That's where, meeting with us virtually can really pay off, where you can kind of do an evaluation with us. And just one caveat on that as we're going is I'm based out of the state of New Jersey. And so right now, an injury specific related item, I can only do that with someone who actually resides in the state of New Jersey because I have to practice within my license. But we have pre-packaged educational and rehab kits that we have created, and we're creating more as we go. And those can be purchased. And once those are purchased, a consultation can be booked with me to walk through those. And then if I identify anything on that video, it's kind of the workaround. I'm able to say, hey, you're doing that exercise, right? But you have a little bit of height. Let's work on this area.
Perfect.
So kind of a workaround, just so people know, because I know you're all over, but I know you're in California, so I know that could be a little bit of a misconception.
That's wonderful, and I'm going to make sure to put that, if that's okay, put that into the copy for this video so people know. Not only are they going to get the free opt-in for the ankle strengthening exercises, but I want them to know that they can access you for advice. Because I think, like you said, that's what parents struggle with is, I'm sorry, my nose is itching. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Won't stop
While you itch your nose, I know you're gonna tap on this earlier, I'll tell people, they can also jump into, and I know you're going to mention it and put up the link, they can also jump into our Facebook group, Parenting Champions, Raising Healthy Athletes, and they can join the group and, they can ask some generalized questions there. Again, we can't give it like diagnosis related information.
Yeah.
But we can answer generalized questions like, hey, I have a sore ankle. Could this be beneficial for that? Yeah, that could be a beneficial exercise, or,
And to ask you to, if, like I said, something happens and the parent goes, okay, what should I do first? What kind of questions should I be asking when we first step into the doctor? And then what should the doctor be recommending potentially for these issues? So I think, like you said, not knowing that, not being able to Google that or go to WebMD to find that answer. Would you share that Facebook group one more time?
It's Parenting Champions Raising Healthy Athletes.
Parenting Champions Raising Healthy Athletes. Okay. For those of you watching, go to Facebook and find her.
Sorry, Supporting Healthy Athletes. Look at, I don't even know the name. Supporting Healthy Athletes. My bad.
Parenting Champions Supporting Healthy Athletes.
Supporting Healthy Athletes.
Okay.
Correct.
They'll find it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and it's a public group, so you can find it.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me look at the questions really quick. So we talked about common injuries. We were talking about ankles, that tends to be common.
Very common.
Yeah, and your unique approach to athletic training and how your business came about. You sort of talked a little bit about that, but maybe just touch on that a little bit more, because I know you were definitely the athletic trainer for some basketball teams, right? Basketball was your.
Yeah. So in my 17 years, I was a Division I women's basketball athletic trainer. So I worked at St. John's University and Rutgers University here on the East Coast. I'm originally a Cali girl, but I worked here on the East Coast for those universities. In that time, so I did that for a solid 9 years. In that time, I was also an athletic trainer for men and women's track, tennis, women's golf, women's swimming and diving, as well as women's gymnastics for 2 years. So I've worked with a multitude of different sports in the last 17 years as an athletic trainer. So the experience is all over. I mean, as you can see back here, I clearly have a little bit of a love for basketball. I played junior college basketball and softball actually in Humboldt County out in California. So
Right. That's right. You shared that.
So I love that. But the idea came about from athletes shouldn't have to be elite, and they shouldn't have to wait until they get to college to have access to somebody like myself and an experienced athletic trainer to support them. So let's bridge the gap and let's figure out how we can get into the hands of these people. We think every school in the United States should employ not one, but multiple athletic trainers so you can have this in-person interaction, but that's just not the reality. So how could we bridge this gap and reach as many people as we can and start getting the word out? And virtual kept running in my mind, especially with the way of the world now of like, let's do this virtually so I can communicate with more people. And then, I had to play the waters of, the liability and where I could do outside, even though I was virtual. And I think like psychologists have this issue as well. You still have to practice within your state with certain bounds, but I can educate people across all state lines.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. I can educate and I can still support. So our pre-written material can be utilized by anybody. You touched on calling and getting guidance on my athlete has this injury. What can we do? And we're learning, and we think that this will be going live soon too, is being able to have a consultation where I can't necessarily diagnose the injury, but maybe I can give you some advice. Like, that sounds like it could be orthopedic. Hey, you might have to go to your, pediatrician because your insurance requires you to, but when you get there, ask these questions, try to get these types of referrals. And then when you get to a pediatrician, ask these questions. So essentially giving you a roadmap of how to navigate the medical field and arming you with the proper questions to advocate for your athlete, for your child, to get the answers that you need to get quicker, because the medical system's not quick. We know that. So
yeah, no, and I'm writing these things down. I swear you're going to have to come back to this video and like pull so much of this that you're speaking, because the copy is so great, right? And that it speaks to the average person. I think again, when we're talking about our kids, and like you said, everybody's physical, everybody is an athlete to a certain degree.
I mean, this is the same.
Yeah. And how do you continue to help and support them, whether or not they're achieving a high athletic goal or not? It's a physical body that you want it to be in balance. You want it to be happy, so that you can live and enjoy your life. For me, I think back when I was younger, I was very, very, very athletic, and there's injuries now, like my low back, certain things that I could have probably done. I fell a couple times. I'm a skater, an inline skater, and I fell and injured, and I think I probably broke my tailbone. And so because of that, and I didn't really address it, now I'm dealing with low back stuff. So I think I need to call you on the download.
Yeah, I got something for you.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
That sacroiliac pain, we got you.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Yeah. So this was mostly to absolutely support parents as it relates to their kids. And I'm so happy to talk to you. So let's end by having you share again one more time the ankle support, the opt-in, because I'm going to put it at the bottom in our copy.
So that's a challenge. It's a challenge that anybody can join at any time. And it's the 3 ankle exercises that every athlete should be doing every day to, build their foundational fitness and reduce their chances, not only of ankle injuries, but of injuries. And it's just a glimpse of what we do, 3 general exercises. And you'll see, we filmed some of these during the pandemic. So you'll see my 5-year-old doing it. Please don't be turned off. I think Lori walked through some of them. He's 5, but I don't care if you're 5 or 55, they're challenging to do repetitively. So definitely give them a whirl. And they will help, just like I said, build general ankle strength and mobility, which is just important because we're on our feet all day. What's the one thing that takes the biggest pounding in our body? Our feet never get a rest, and your hip bone's connected to your knee bone, just like the song goes, right? So we need to build from the bottom up and build ourselves strong. So that's just a foundational piece that people can really grasp onto, that I think is a great starting point to start building those healthy daily habits.
I love that. So not only can the kids do it, the parents can do it, but even I think about those of us that are supporting our aging parents.
Absolutely.
Like I think about my mom, I'm starting to watch her lose her balance, and it's really nerve-wracking for me. So even things like be able to share those with her. So let me just recap for Micaiah, because she's got this free opt-in that I'm going to put the link to at the bottom. So you can opt in for these ankle exercises that every athlete, and remember, you're all athletes, your children, you are, your parents are, so that you can do these to stay healthy. You can get onto her Facebook group, Parenting Champions, supporting
healthy athletes.
Supporting healthy athletes. I'll put that in the copy too, so that you know that. And then remember that she is an advocate for you. So she's going to help you create a roadmap to navigate the medical world. If in fact you have an injury, you or your child has an injury, and you want to understand how to navigate that. And she'll arm you with the questions to ask. That's the big thing, right? To know what you don't know. I think that's where Micaiah is going to be brilliant at in terms of supporting you. So Micaiah, I'm so happy. We're going to have to come around and do this again. We wanted to kind of give everybody kind of a taste test of what you're offering, give them something right now tangible that they can access. And we'll be having these conversations again. Thank you. So Micaiah Corley with Sidekick AT athletic trainer, and we'll be catching you soon. Thanks again for watching.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, you're welcome, Micaiah.